Good evening, welcome to Coptic Cafe on Logos TV. Thank you for watching. I'm Father Joseph Bolus, your host. We are very honored and blessed this evening to have His Grace Bishop Sarabion in the studio with us. His Grace has just arrived from Egypt, had a very long day, but thank you, Your Grace, for being here with us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Welcome back to Coptic Cafe.
Thank you.
We are going to try to make the best use of our 1 hour with His Grace. So I invite you to call the station at 818-238-3388. You may also post your questions or comments for His Grace on Facebook.com/Coptic Cafe. We'd love to hear from you as we speak to His Grace. Your Grace, first I have to convey to Your Grace the heartfelt condolences of the parishioners and the youth and young professionals that I met for the passing of His Holiness Pope Shenouda.
Thank you. All we need condolences because His Holiness Pope Shenouda is the father of all of us, and we all share. But we receive what happened by thanking God for everything, and also with a great hope and also strong faith, and that is the Lord will help us to bring peace in our hearts from above, and we are sure that His Holiness is praying for every one of us, and as He cared for the Church during His life on earth, but now He in the front of the throne of God to pray for every one of us.
Yes, Your Grace. Thank you for your kind words. Many people have profound sadness over the passing and the news of the passing of the thrice blessed His Holiness Pope Shenouda. And I want to jump right away into the questions we have for Your Grace to make wise use of Your Grace's time. I want to start out by asking Your Grace, one of the parishioners conveyed to me that this Holy Week that we are embarking on is going to be extra sad. What does Your Grace say for the people who feel this kind of sadness?
We should use the Holy Week and the Feast of the Resurrection not to be extra sadness for us, but in the opposite, to comfort us. Because as St. Paul sent to the people of Thessaloniki and asked them not to be grief like the other who grieve without hope. And during the Holy Week, as we follow the suffering of our Lord Jesus Christ, as we have hope, that is the Lord Jesus Christ suffered for us to liberate us from the slavery of sin and to open for us the door of the paradise and for eternal life. And in His death and the resurrection, He brings hope for the life after death. All the people before His coming, they had no hope, because all their souls go to hell, but to Hades. So, except the people who have believed of the coming of the Messiah, that they lived in the hope of his coming. So we, during the Holy Week, we remember that. And that is to let us not to have extra sadness, but in the opposite, to comfort our sadness and to be a source for peace for us, and also source for joy. That is why during the Holy Week, if we remember that His Holiness is not with us, but we remember that He is praying for us, and He is rejoicing with the saints because of the suffering of Christ and His crucifixion and His resurrection. So I hope to this parishioner, to the Holy Week experience, to be for him and for all of us is comfortable. That's why we say that we have to go during the Holy Week. We have to celebrate the Feast of the Resurrection, because the resurrection of the Lord is the source of our hope and comfort.
And Your Grace, the hymns that we sing during Holy Week are are very rich and they move the emotions of many people. And what would your Grace's advice or exercises to do during Holy Week for people if sadness overtake them because of they're thinking about His Holiness, or they're moved by the hymns that we are singing? What are some of the exercises you would recommend for us to do, exercise?
We go to the depths of the hymns, because all the hymns, even the tune of the tone is a tone of sadness, which actually the church don't use the sadness tune, but we saw it the tune of the Holy Week or of the Pascha, because it is not the idea of sadness. It is different, but we call the hours, the praise of the third hour of the Holy Pascha. So we call it the praise, because we are praising God in Soktatigom, for example. The hymns like Omonogenes, we remember the power of Christ, and so on. So when we go to this, the hymns of the Holy Week, we go to the meaning of these hymns. And we see how the church in these hymns give us to reveal the power that He suffered, not out of weakness, but out of power, and He was strong in his suffering. And the outcome of this suffering, why He suffered, it is for us. And that is which, when we follow the suffering of Christ, we rejoice of the outcome of His sufferings. And remember also that is those who departed, now their souls are reposed. So whether we remember His Holiness or anyone, or if a beloved one from the family passed away during this time, and come to the Holy Week and the resurrection, to be source also for comfort for them.
Your Grace, I want to move to make use of Your Grace's presence here with us on the show. You just came back from Egypt. Before we get into the process, explaining the process in English for the English viewers of electing a new Pope, there were many rumors before the passing of His Holiness Pope Shenouda, several weeks and months even before. And I remember on that Saturday, March 17th, someone called me and asked me, is the news true? They just read it in Facebook. So I quickly turned to Logos and CYC and CTV, and there was nothing on the station. So I told them it's probably another rumor. But then 10 minutes later, or 15 minutes later, all the television stations had the news. When Your Grace heard of the news, did you think it was another rumor, or how did Your Grace verify?
Yeah, it happened. It was this Saturdays. We have a servant meeting for San Maurice servants. So we just finished the liturgy and went to the hall. And after I blessed the food, then one of the servants, she was crying. And she said somebody called her, or she checked his iPhone, but I don't know, that she said Pope Shenouda, Pope Shenouda. And so I also, okay, wait until we be sure about this. So I went directly to my cell upstairs, and I called Bishop Botos, one of the secretary, and asked him, and of course he confirmed this is true, and he gave me some details about what happened. So then I called for that is to be announced in Logos, and I wrote a message, and then start to prepare for my travel to Egypt. So yes, I went to confirm it because it happened, like you mentioned, and rumors happen, and people just discover it was not true.
And Your Grace left immediately to Egypt, and we would like to know how are Their Graces, the bishops and Their Eminence, the metropolitans, are doing during these difficult times.
Of course, everybody feel missing His Holiness, but at the same time, we are sure that now He is praying for us, and we all participated in the funeral and the burial, and after that we have to overcome the sadness and start to do our responsibility in leading the church during this transitional period. That's why after the burial, we went for a meeting on Thursday. The burial was in in Tuesdays. You went for a meeting for the joint meeting of the Holy Synod and the Majlis al-Milli, or Community Council. We use this English translation of Majlis al-Milli. And we elected the Qa'im Maqam, so Amba Bakhumius, Metropolitan of Al-Bahira. And we started to our work. So we have to overcome our sorrow and our sadness to be able to take our responsibility in leading the church during this time. But we thank God that we felt the work of the Lord among us, and also the prayer of His Holiness for us in the spirit of cooperation and the way of the discussion which is happening in the Holy Synod, in the meeting, and how the process is moving in a smooth way. Even we have some issues to be discussed, and sometimes we have different opinions, but at the end we come with a decision which all of us to respect, which many people, they didn't expect that is after the departure of His Holiness, that is we can come and we move in this way, and also the speed of moving is very good in relation to the situation which we are facing. So definitely we feel the prayer of His Holiness and also the wisdom of Metropolitan Bakhumius in leading the church in this time.
Your Grace mentioned in a press conference that Your Grace held after the meeting that there was a spirit of fellowship and camaraderie between the metropolitans and bishops, and it was very comforting for us to know that the process is moving smoothly.
Yeah.
Your Grace mentioned the funeral and the burial. We saw some amazing and awesome videos, of course, of the funeral. The blessed viewers have seen, I'm sure all of them have by now. And also at the time when the hearse went to the monastery to place His Holiness in the final resting place, have Your Grace come in contact with the people of Egypt because of the instability of the country and the stresses they were under, and now the passing of the Pope? How are they handling the situation?
Of course, it was a moment not only for the church but for whole Egypt to be united among all this division and happening in the country. So the moment of the funeral of His Holiness was a moment for unity for most of the Egyptian Muslims and the Christians when are coming together to express these feelings. There are many Muslims who came to the funeral, many Muslims who came to express their heartfelt condolences. Not only the officials, but even you meet people, just when you saw us, they express their feeling, and of course all the articles which is written. So I think it was a great moment for the Egyptians to show how the relationship between Muslim and the Christian, which built through centuries, it's coming and appear in such kind of critical moment in the life of the country. And we hope that is this spirit to continue, because how everybody respect His Holiness as not only as a leader of the Christian, but also as a national leader who are committed to the country and to the national unity of all the Egyptian, plus of course the respect all over the world, heads of the churches, and of course some of the president, like our president here, President Barack Obama, who was his wife Michelle. They also sent a statement of condolences immediately after the departure of His Holiness.
Yes, and to add to Your Graces, it's not just happening in Egypt. I was in a measured warehouse store here locally in Orange County, California, and I was stopped by one of the employees. I've seen him many times, he's seen me. I never knew he was Middle Eastern, and he introduced himself to me and says, I am so-and-so, and I heard about the passing of your Pope, my condolences. And he was obviously a Muslim, so the Spirit is spreading throughout the world, as your Grace is saying.
Yeah, I remember also when in my way I stopped in London as a transit, so one of saw me, so he came and expressed his condolences. And in the plane from, it was a British Airways from London to Cairo, one of the cabin crew, they always have in British Airways at least two who are to speak Arabic, Egyptian. Yeah. After they finished the service, she came particularly for me, even I'm not in the part of her service. She said, I am a Muslim, but I'm coming to express my condolences. We say many good words about His Holiness and what we can do. But I told her it is enough your good feelings. Yeah. So she came out without, of course, a requirement to come and express her condolences and how she introduced herself. So we are very appreciating to this good spirit from our brothers and sisters, the Muslims, in this difficult time.
Definitely the fruits of the wisdom and the dealings of His Holiness Pope Shenouda. You're watching the Coptic Cafe Show on Logos TV. Thank you for watching. We welcome your comments or questions at any time. Call in the program or on Facebook. I'd like to, we're very honored and blessed to have His Grace Bishop Sarabion here with us. I'm very happy with your Grace's presence. It's a great blessing, Sayyidina. I wanted to ask your Grace, did His Holiness Pope Shenouda leave any clues as to whom he would like to come next? I asked the question because sometimes in the Synaxarium we would read the repose of a patriarch who would appoint someone before their passing and say so-and-so will take my place.
For His Holiness was very clear about it. He didn't want to have any influence for the election of his successors. And in some interviews he was asked directly about this issue, and in the public TV, not only the Christian. But he was very clear about this. He didn't mention anything about any preferences, and he said that is, for him, his responsibility ends by his departure. And then anything after that, he will not take any responsibility of it. Yeah. For him, it's very clear. And anybody to say that is, he mentioned or hint to anybody, I'm sure it is not true.
What are some of your Grace's favorite memories or stories with His Holiness? The time is short. I'm trying to move fast and get as much as we can in the limited time we have.
I always look up to His Holiness for me as a very kind father, and I will continue to remember until I meet him in the heaven. That is, I remember his fatherhood and his care for me, his support for me. He also disciplined me in many occasions, and I'm very grateful and thank God to give me the opportunity in my life to know His Holiness that close and to benefit for him and for his wisdom and for his love. And I'm sure that is, he will pray for me and continue to pray for me.
Any stories your Grace would like to share with us, specific events or how you met His Grace or how it all started?
The first time I met His Holiness face to face, I was a student in Asyut, and he was visiting Asyut, and he came to the stations, and his train stopped at the third platform, but he have to move among the crowd, not organize it, pushing him to cross and then to in the main building. So I was entering the station.
This is before your Grace were a bishop.
Before even be a monk. I was a student in Asyut. So it happens that is at the moment he is moving, people pushing him, I came, and then they opened the office of the chief of the station to let His Holiness go to this, just to rest. So I entered, of course without invitation, just entered. And it was the first time to see him Even it was a difficult time with all this crowd, very tired, but he was very calm, the same sense of humor which he showed, and his response about when I cannot translate in English, but in Arabic, when the chief of the station, he told him that is all this happened out of the love of the people. فقال له بس المحبة زادت حبة. يعني it was extra love, but in Arabic محبة وحبة they coming together. So I always emphasize this the human aspect, and how when he faced a difficult situation, how he faced it in a very strong and very calm way. This is something which I really appreciate and try to learn at least part of it.
Your Grace, very humble. Sayyidina, if I may dare and ask, what would be the one thing you'll miss the most about His Holiness? I'm sure there are many, but what would you narrow down to?
One who can I turn to him when I need advice, and I'm sure that is, I trust him, and the one who, out of his love to me, can also, when I'm doing something wrong, he discipline me, and so I will miss definitely His Holiness in his wisdom, which helped me a lot since I knew, when I was a monk, going to him, asking questions, theological questions, answering me, and then in my service in Switzerland, then all the 10 years in the Bishop of Community Social Services, when I was under him directly, living in the same building with him, having many chances to sit with him. I never sit with him in his office during these 10 years about the issues of the bishopric, but always either on the elevator, on the stairs. He allowed me to be with him taking lunch or dinner, and this was a chance when we talk and we learn from him. He also was generous with me to allow me to accompany him in all his abroad trip since I was ordained a bishop till I came here, even when I became a bishop here. But he also was very generous to me to allow me to go and speak and ask his advice. So definitely I will miss someone, his wisdom and his love to guide me in my service.
You're watching the Coptic Cafe Show on Logos TV. We have Dr. Shahira on the line. Dr. Shahira, welcome to the show. Thank you for calling. What's on your mind?
Well, we thank God for the safe return of our bishop, and I can't forget to thank Pope Shenouda for one of his good deeds, having Bishop Sarabion to be our bishop here, and other bishops very blessed in other areas in the Mahgar, in the people outside Egypt. I have a question for Sayyidina concerning the atmosphere in Egypt after the departure of Pope Shenouda, being as so loving and merciful and forgiving as he was. Are the administrative people or people in power feeling like sorry for their unfairness and unfairness with those who were not fair to the Christians? That's one. And how about those fanatic, aggressive people? Do they feel sorry? Do they feel like it's time to reconcile their thoughts and be kind to the people whose best man went to heaven, and maybe they are afraid he will be stronger and have more influence on them being in heaven? What's the atmosphere there after his departure?
And thank you, Dr. Shahira, for calling, Your Grace.
The general feeling, that is a feeling of appreciation for His Holiness, which is expressed by all levels and except very few people. And being as the national leader, his how during the difficult situation he was a wise man to avoid that things to be out of control. And of course they are concerned about whether his successor will have the same wisdom to be loved and supported and respected by his people, but at the same time to be sensitive about the situation of the country. So that is the general thing. Of course, all the officials, they came from all levels, and is to express also their appreciation. Everybody is waiting who will come, who is the successor. That's why they watch very carefully about the process, and always coming, as most of the media like to come with some names, expectations, suggestions, and all these things which show that is, and he makes the position of the Pope as the interest of the whole country, if I don't say even outside the country. Whether this will reflect on the what we are suffering from as a Christian, we don't know. Whether it's just an emotional things, and after that it's returned, like what happened in January last year, when all the Egyptians come together, and after that we return to the same sectarian tension which existing. We hope that is to continue.
Your Grace, before we move into the process of electing a new Pope, I want to share with Your Grace an experience I had in Boston when His Grace, His Holiness Pope Shenouda used to come and gather all the priests. And one time a question came to His Holiness, says, will you tell us about the life of the cave when you were a monk and you stayed in the monastery? And His Holiness, I remember his answer, he says, this will never, it will never happen that I tell you about this experience. Any chance for us to now know what was his biography recorded somewhere, or does anyone know what he experienced to benefit from the spiritual struggle?
Of course, we don't know in details, because there's some secret what he's doing in his cell in the cave, Al-Maghara. But we know that is, from some stories he's mentioning in the private sessions, that is, of course, he spent most of the time in reading, in prayer, enjoys the silence, and he used to come to the monastery from time to time and bring a camel or a donkey to carry the books, because he used to take a lot of books, of course, from the library, and then bring them back. You cannot carry all this, all these books. And also how God protected him from snakes, from scorpions, and he sometimes mentioned some stories about this, because it's not a safe place when to be alone. And of course, when His Holiness Pope Kyrillos called him, he said, this is the day which I wept most, cried most, because he would feel to be as a bishop to miss the life in the monastery. And you know that is a story when how Pope Kyrillos called him,
ordained him a bishop for education,
because there are some visitors that came, and so His Holiness asked Abba Theophilus to bring him, the monk Abuna Antonius, because there is a complaint. So it was a start, and so he asked him what happened to this visitor. He answered these questions and asked him about Mary's Hats and Isaac. And so it was a discussion, and as they tried to leave, then he put his hand on him, and we call you Shenouda, a bishop. So he wept very much, because he's going to miss. So that's why he continued to come to the monastery as a bishop half of the week and even after being a pope. So the love of the monastery was in his heart. It helped him during the time of Sadat when he put him in the monastery for 40 months. If he is the one who does not used to the monastery, loves the monastery, it will be difficult for him. But that's why he felt this is at home, because this is how he used to spend half of his week in the monastery.
I, for one, Your Grace, having grown up here in the States, would love to have these stories compiled sometime or at a certain time in a book, and maybe anyone who has these stories, all their graces, the bishops and the metropolitans can compile them. Your Grace, I want to ask you one more thing before we get into the process. We heard Your Grace mention at one point that the office of His Holiness the Pope is sealed, meaning nobody can go in and nobody can break the seal. Why is this, and when will this seal be broken and by whom?
Yeah, usually immediately after the departure, that is the office and his private residence and in Cairo and Alexandria and the monastery to be sealed, closed, until Al-Qa'im Maqam to be elected, and then he has the right to form a committee to open with this committee to see what is there, and because it's, of course there is many private things. So now maybe they form a committee to do this, or sometimes some places they wait until the second pope or the coming pope to do it. So I don't know whether what will happen. But it is done as a kind of protection, because if they left open, we don't know who will go and enter, may take something from there, something to be missed. So this is a procedure which is done with any patriarch immediately after his. So now they don't use the office. Amba Bachomius, he refused to use the office of His Holiness. He said no. So that's why they make for him another office in the same building, on the opposite wing, the other wing. So out of respect for His Holiness.
Your Grace, if you can, we can have Your Grace generally explain to the viewers the process of electing a new pope.
Firstly, we follow. There is a bylaws which was formed in 1957. We discuss about this. Of course, it is not a perfect one. There has a lot of defects because of it's done in the 50s, so there is a lot of a change in the church.
And who wrote it in Greece?
This is a Holy Synod at that time. They formed these bylaws. So we have to decide whether we follow these bylaws or we make amendments. So we found that is to make amendments now, it will take a lot of discussion and maybe take a long time, because it have to be approved by the parliament and by the president.
The Egyptian parliament and Egyptian president.
Because the pope, yes, it is elected and by the church, but the president should to issue a decree for that is because to have the official status, this is the pope. For the bylaws should be approved by the parliament and by the government, because in the election, the day of the election, a representative of the Ministry of Internal Affairs should attend. So we found that if we start this process, it may take time. We don't know the situation in Egypt, and now with all these things happen in the parliament and presidential election, so it may take a long time. We don't know what we will end. So decided to accept and follow these bylaws, even with the defects, and we try to adapt it to the situation, so long it will not reach to that is, we have to amend it officially. That's why we have a group of a legal team to help us when it comes to any proposal, whether this mean is amendment, and we have to go to this channel of changing of the bylaws. So according to these bylaws, that is the first step after choosing the maqam, the one who take care and is temporarily take care.
Locum lieutenant?
No. We have a committee of 18 people called the nomination committee. The nomination committee is headed by the Amba Bachomius and have 9 metropolitan bishops and 9 lay people from the Majlis al-Milli, their community councils, and the Holy Synod to appoint them. So we did it in a very transparent process when we put his Amba Bachomius put a criteria to have them from different places among the abbot of the monasteries, among the bishop in the Lower Egypt, Upper Egypt, from outside Egypt, and general bishops. And he came with 15 names as a proposal, and every member of the Holy Synods in secret ballot to write 9 names, with advice to follow this criteria from different regions. And those who got the highest votes, they form the 9 member from the bishop. The same also from the lay people, we get the legal team, those who are with this background, plus other
consultants.
So now the committee, this 9 will be a member of the committee, not consultant. The consultant for the Holy Synod in the other meetings. But this committee, the nomination committee, it's responsible to receive the reclamation or the recommendation of the names, because nobody will come and say, I will run to be a patriarch. But the people, either 6 from metropolitan and bishop, or 12 from the lay person of the member of the Majlis al-Milli, our community councils, they come and present, that is, we recommend this name to be the patriarch, and they will have to form a file including everything they know about. We make guidelines in a form, big form, to help them to give us information about this.
Your Grace, so only the bishops of the Holy Synod or the members of the community council will present names? No one else from the church can bring
this,
names?
Yeah, only this, and also the number, 6 or 12.
Yes, and how many people are in a community council? How?
24.
24.
24, I think 3 of them passed away, so now it's missing 21 or
and the Holy Synod is a little bit over 100?
Or 90, I think, 90 now. This is the committee. We will start to receive this after the 40-day commemoration. That's why all what we hear in the media, that is this person is running or could be the candidate, all this
it's hearsay so far.
Because there is no official thing. They will not open yet to receive. And we'll have a chance for about 20 days until the 17th of May, when they close the door for any new acclamation to be presented. After that, the committee will examine this, the requests or reclamation, tazkiyat, which we receive. It gave them a chance of 15 days. So after 15 days, we will bring the first list, we call the preliminary list. There is a list of the number of the candidates, which people recommend them, and they fulfill the general criteria, like the age, the years of being a monk, and so on, being Egyptians. And this list will be announced. This was very official announcement about who are the candidates.
This could be 20, 30 people.
Yeah.
Or
and then it will be open for 15 days. That is, anyone who is in the register the voters, can send any rejection or any protest or objections or criticism or any accusations against any of these names.
Okay, Your Grace, may I just ask for clarification, who are the voters?
The voters, parallel with this process, there is another committee to register the voters according to categories in the bylaws. Number one, the metropolitans, the bishops, and the abbot of the monastery and the deputies, and then the member of the Majlis al-Milli, the member of the parliament, the member of the ministers, Coptic ministers, current or former, and then 24 priests from Cairo, 7 priests from Alexandria, and then 72 lay persons from Cairo and 24 persons from Alexandria, and from every diocese to have the deputy of the diocese and the sub-deputies of the regions in the cities, plus 12 from lay people. That is the bishop of the diocese form a committee of 5, and they choose the 12, and could be among the 12 the 5 in the committee of the bishops. And the journalists. But should be a journalist registered in Egypt. Either they own a newspaper or magazine, or they are the chief editor, or they are journalists, but it should be in a daily newspaper. So the owner could be a daily or weekly, and the chief editor, but the journalist should be in a daily newspaper.
So this is a finite set of people, Your Grace. It's not going to be that the population of the church would be able to vote. There are selected members from each section, from each diocese, from each ranking, and they would be like delegates or representatives for the area they come from?
Well, according to the bylaws, they vote as individuals. And this is the way of the selection. That's why I want to have here in the Diocese of Los Angeles to make the system to work here, so that let people to participate. That is after the final list and people know about the candidates. We make also a survey one day, that is in one Sunday, that is all the people of the diocese in the churches, to get also their opinions. So the 12 to be like the delegates who carry what is the consensus or the agreement or of the feeling of the diocese to the election process. So not to be the only personal opinion, but the opinion of the people of the diocese. And so in this way, we can let the people to have a say in the process. It's not an election in the right sense of the election, but to know about what is the direction. So it's be like this delegates to get a direction from the people of the diocese as going as a delegates to them.
So Your Grace mentioned that the Holy Synod had to approve the bylaws of 1957, and you decided to go with it, with its flaws and with
not
its
to approve, because it's only approved.
To follow it.
To follow it.
Yes.
Whether we decide to follow it or to say no, we have to amend it.
Which, yes. Yeah. And then you created a committee of 9 bishops and 9 lay, and the stand-in pope would be the 19th vote. And then there will be a group of voters, and there's a specific criteria of who can be a voter. The Holy Synod or the members of the Community Council can nominate names, and then the job of the nomination committee is to look over the names. That's where we stopped, and Your Grace explained in the process. So the voters will come, and there will be committee to make sure that the voters are qualified to be voters.
Yes.
And then from this point on?
Two parallel processes. The process of registering the voters, which has a schedule, and the committee, which have its own committee, that is for the registration, and then they have the first list of the voters. If there is any any criticism or objections, they study it by another committee to set this objection until they come with the final list of the voters.
Okay.
At the same time, the nomination committee is working to bring firstly the first list of the candidates, and they allow at that time the voters list already existing, so they allow them, if any one of them have any objection of the candidates.
Oh, so any objections to the name of a nominated person to be a patriarch can only come from the voters.
Yes.
Only the voters can object.
The same also, any objection for the voter should come from the voters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the first list of the voters. If any objection of, suppose one of the criteria is the voter to be 35 and to be clean of any previous,
no judgment against him or imprisonment.
If suppose there is a name, he was a member or ministers or under any category, or he came under any diocese, and somebody know that this man has previously judged in things in the court. Then one of the voters have to apply to present this, and this another committee which is headed by the Maqam Standing Patriarch, plus one of the clergy and one of the lay, to examine it. Not the same committee which registered, because they examine the work of this committee. So they don't do the work and the correction.
Okay.
And then it comes with the final list of the voters. And they send a card for everyone that you are registered and you have the right to come to vote. They're supposed to finish this, but the time when we present the first list.
The first list of the nominees. To be, okay.
So they can present any objections.
Okay.
And we open for objection for 15 days. After the 15 days, we close the door for any new objection, and then the nomination committee to examine this objection. This is it could take time. The bylaws estimate 1 month for that. They have to examine all the objection, examine all the candidates, and they conclude their work by coming with a list of 7, maximum, minimum 5. It depends on how many objections we will receive. We can easily deal with this because we have to examine it one by one. We may call the candidate, the nominee, to come and ask him what is his response to this objection. And maybe we ended by, say, 10, which was no objection for them, and they are cleared from any objections. But we have to bring 7. Then
maximum 7, minimum 5.
So have to start another process of between us deliberate as a committee if we can find a consensus of 7, or we do voting.
And how will you go from 7 or 5 to 3 that would go to the altar for the lottery?
We deliberate among some of the criteria of a patriarch. If we find equal, so the only is voting. And we just vote name by name.
Will Your Grace support anyone for the nominees to be a patriarch?
No. I only support 2 things. Number 1, the process is to be transparent, just process. Number 2, not to violate the canon. This is, but whatever the person, whoever to be at the end, for me, are the same. So long these 2 conditions are fulfilled. Plus, I chosen among the nomination committee, and for the nomination committee we agreed among each other at the first meeting, that is, we don't sign to any candidates. Yani all the members of the committee, whether the lay or the clergy, they agreed, and no, they will not sign.
Not to endorse anyone.
And to endorse anyone. Just, and of course, nobody to accept endorsement to be candidates. And if this happens, he has to resign from the committee.
Your Grace, you mentioned the church canons. May I read, Your Grace, the 14th Apostolic Canon, because it's related to the issue of may bishops of existing dioceses be elevated or transferred to the patriarchal seat. If I may read it for Your Grace, it says, a bishop is not to be allowed to leave his own parish and pass over into another, although he may be pressed by many to do so, unless there be some proper cause constraining him, as if he can confer some greater benefit upon the persons of that place in the word of godliness. And this must be done not of his own accord, but by the judgment of many bishops and at their earnest exhortation.
Yeah. So this canon, which is Canon 14, the Apostolic Canon, which firstly put the rule that is no bishop to move from a diocese to another diocese, except if there is a need, which he expressed, that is, it will not come from his own, but if there is a need, that is, it will be for the benefit of the church. And they put in the last sentence of this canon, that is, it's not, it is done by many bishops after earnest exhortation. Yani they have the bishop to deliberate seriously, and they come with a conclusion, yes, the church in need of this person to be moved from his diocese. Of course, this is a canon for any movement from a diocese to another diocese. And because the Patriarch is the Bishop of Alexandria, he has his own diocese, which include Alexandria and Cairo. So actually, when we have a Patriarch, we to have a Bishop for Alexandria. So that's why it applies for him, this canon. Then the Canon 15 of the Council of Nicaea, he is dealing with that is this canon was not followed in some areas. That's why it's mentioned, because of the disturbance happened. We can read it, the Canon 15.
Yes, I have it here. Yeah. If any presbyter or deacon or any other...
No, the 15 of the Nicaea.
Canon 15, yeah.
Canon 15,
oh, sorry.
Not 15.
This is the Apostolic Canon, Your Grace. It says, if any presbyter or deacon or any other of the list...
This is another thing. We need the 15 of Nicaea, which is the first page.
On account of great disturbance,
yes,
and disorders that occur, it is decreed that the custom prevailing in certain places contrary to the canon must wholly be done away, so that neither bishop, presbyter, nor deacon shall pass from city to city. And if anyone after this decree of the Holy and Great Synod shall attempt any such thing, or continue in any such course, his proceedings shall be utterly void, and he shall be restored to the church for which he was ordained bishop or presbyter. So,
now he's speaking on the account of great disturbance and discord that occur. So this means he's dealing as a situation when there is a disturbance happen, confusion happen. Why? Because it's decreed that the custom prevailing in certain places contrary to the canon. Because the custom, people, they don't follow the canon. That means the Nicaea is referring to all the canon, which is the Apostolic Canon 14. That must be done away. So we have to stop this custom. And then it stated that is so that neither bishop, presbyter, or deacon shall pass from a city to a city. And if this happen, it should this person is restored, because it happened in that time, of course, after Constantine there are many who have ambition to go to a larger city or a larger church, so which cause disturbances because it's like a competition to go. So if we take Canon 14 of the Apostolic Canon, which is the older, and the Canon 15 of the Council of Nicaea, which mean that is to move a bishop from a diocese to diocese. Of course, it's completely forbidden to do it in his own. And the only exception, if there is a great need, and who decides this great need is the Synod, which has said many bishops. Unfortunately, the bylaws of the 1957 does not distinguish between the bishop of a diocese or a monk, put them as the same. But if this is to be in line with the canon, then it should have a distinction between the two. Firstly, we have to deliberate as a Holy Synod whether really there is a need in the church for that or not. Now, we cannot do it because we don't know whether any diocesan bishops, his name will be presented, and whether there is a need for this person in particular to be the patriarch. We don't know, but definitely in the nomination committee we will be taken in consideration this canon when we discuss the different candidates, especially if we received a recommendation for a diocesan bishop or a metropolitan.
Your Grace, our time is coming to an end, and I have a lot more questions for Your Grace, but I think maybe an important one to touch on before we conclude. St. John Chrysostom was, in his commentary on the book of Jonah, talks about lottery, and how lottery to the human looks like it's by chance, but from God, it's a specific person. So I'm just referring to the concept of God using lottery to point out a person. And he said when the seamen threw the lottery, it landed on Jonah. So it wasn't left for chance, it was known that Jonah was running from God. So I'm just referring to only to the narrow analogy of God using lottery to point to a specific person. And that's what we do indeed in the end, is after we take all the names, we take them to the altar and use the lottery system. Some people have some comments and questions about that. What does Your Grace say?
Firstly, the lottery is not the only way that is God to show His will. God can show His will in our hearts, in our consensus, our feeling, and not all our decision we do it by lottery. But why in this bylaws they put this lottery at the end? Because they use a system of election. In a system of election, there is a human factor in that. People can campaign, people can influence. So because it choose, this bylaws, it choose this route of election and nomination and people coming to guarantee or to offset the human factors, which could be a wrong one or using any wrong way in this process. They make, like at the end, okay, we will present our outcome to God. If any mistakes which we happen in this process, please God correct it. But if we don't, if we use another way, when, like for example, if we as a bishops with a group of lay people, we fast and pray and close in a closed church and without any connection, and we pray and hear about this responsibility and service and self-denial, and then we come with names. If God guide us to come to a name after this process, this is a way which God is speaking to us. So I say the lottery is not wrong, but not the only way or the best way to know the will of God. But if we use a way which in this, just in human factors, then there's a lottery. Like a person when have a choice, if he reached a choice that has two things are very equal, then he may go. But it doesn't mean in any choice that is we do a lottery. Plus, we have to follow the commandment and the rule. So we cannot deviate and then put it in the hand of God to choose. Because God will help us if we follow Him. If we don't follow Him, they leave us to what we want to choose, like somebody who must want something from God. So he wants a lottery to bring him what he wish. So he's not neutrally want to the will of God. So that's why in this process I said we have to be very careful to be a transparent, just and fair process, and not to deviate from the canon of the church. So can God speak to us? If we don't follow that, maybe come to the choice, but not the God choice. This is our choice.
Your Grace, I would like to thank you very, very much for blessing us here on the Coptic Cafe show. It was a pleasure having Your Grace always. And I thank you for enlightening the viewers about the process. And we wish Your Grace that God continues His wisdom with Your Grace and your leadership. And we feel that it's in good hands with this committee.
Thank you very much. And we all pray that is God to guide the church to the right choice. And we're sure that is God respond to our prayers, which we should do it in a pure heart.
Thank you, Grace. You've been watching the Coptic Cafe program on Logos TV. Thank you for watching. We were very blessed to have His Grace Bishop Sarabion. Until next time, have a good evening.